Hello, everyone. My name is Martin Koch, and I'm the son of our family winery, which I have taken over now from my parents. We are a family winery with about 16 hectares in the area of Rheinhessen, which is close to the river Rhine, about half an hour from Frankfurt Airport. And our soil has a lot of limestone. About 20 years ago, we started with a new, next step, a new innovation about grapes, which have a natural power, have a high quality, high taste, a good quality level, and they have this natural power against diseases. So they are a lot more resistant to environmental impacts, especially diseases. And we started with this line, which is called Auftakt. We are happy because we have a high amount of these vineyards are from these special grapes. And that means we can experiment a lot. When we started planting these new grapes, we experimented in the vineyard, in the cellar, and to understand what is the best thing to do about each grape. And but maybe we will talk about it in the next few questions. Just like in the traditional grape varieties, each grape has its own characteristic. We need to learn what is the characteristic, what is the potential, and what is good for each grape. For instance, there are grapes where it's good to take off some leaves so the sun can shine directly on the grapes. In other grapes and in other varieties, it's better not to take off too many. Or is it good to have a long skin contact between skin and juice once you have harvested the grapes? Or is it better to have it short? And this depends on each grape. And they have this natural resistancy. That means they have inside their, the plant itself can fight against fungus. So you don't need to spray as much, sometimes almost nothing throughout the year. That means you have less impact on the environment, you have less tractor driving, especially once it has rained, you do not need to go to the vineyard. So you protect the soil. The soil is not as much condensed. You have more activity, natural activity inside the soil, and you have a lower CO2 footprint at the end. And we see the climate change in the wine growing conditions. We see that for many decades that the harvesting moment is getting earlier and earlier. The blooming of the flower is getting earlier and earlier, and we have more extreme situations. And the new grapes, they can catch up easier with longer rain periods as the classical ones. That's a really good question. So, because indeed, most of those peewee grapes have a thicker skin. That's, for example, one thing we had to learn. When we grow in the vineyard, the peewee grapes, and also when we work them then later in the winery, already how to understand, how to taste what is the good moment to harvest the grapes. I check on different aspects than on a Riesling or on a Chardonnay. In both cases, I taste the grape, but in the peewee, I really macerate the skin, just what you mentioned, because the skin is thicker, which protects it inside the skin often, not in every grape, peewee grape, but in quite a few of them, there are tannins. And the tannins, they protect the berry against botrytis. But as you have tannins now in the skin, also with white wines, we don't want to have too much tannins later in the wine. So I really have to understand when is the moment that the tannins are ripe. Cold does not because not really. It depends, because the cold problem we have is in April and May. So the risk is to have a frost below zero, and the branches are just about to grow, and then comes the cold and they die. At that stage, it's just the question of that there's water inside the green branches and the water freezes, and there it depends more on the grape variety. Some of Piwi grapes are early, so they are more risky. Yeah, why did we start? The question in our family was about which direction do we want to go? Is there a possibility to go on one side on quality and on sustainability? I see there's a lot of positive aspects in the organic growing of grapes. I see there are also some difficult aspects, but the question was, well, rather to discuss about if it's better to have this, or everything has advantage and disadvantage on a sustainable point of view. We knew, and we got to know that there are new Piwi grapes which are supposed to be better than the older Piwi grapes. So that's what made us start to taste, to think, to discuss inside the family, etc. So because we said, if there is a grape which has a good quality level and has a characteristic, a positive characteristic and a high potential, and by itself has this natural resistancy, then why should I not use this power which nature gives us, this option? So because from a sustainability, from a point of sustainability, from environment protection, there is no disadvantage, because we don't discuss whether this organic, non-organic. No, the only disadvantage is marketing. Is the selling, because people do not know Sauvignon Gris, Muscaris, Arch, or whatever the name is. So, but we thought, well, like, if you really want to reduce the impact on the environment, if you have a grape you not need to spray only 20%, then it's absolutely way better than to say I spray this way, or either organic or not, but you still need to go. Your tractor is still driving and you still have an impact. So that was the basic idea, And of course, people would say, it's and also other wine growers, it's a great option, but how are you going to sell the wine? So we really, at the beginning, we were like missionaries, telling people, look, this is another option. Do you like to try? And that's just when the wine is good itself, then people like to buy it again. And if you don't like the wine, then then no. That's why keep repeating, and to other wine growers who come here or call me and say, can you give me some help or some
advice?
Advice. Thank you. And so, look, it's very important that you go and try to understand this grape and do your own experiments on your soil, on your conditions, in your winery, and not just say, I do it just the same way as I do other grapes, because then you will lose the chance what is inside this Sauvignon Gris or Monarch and so on. In our winery, we do not use color at all. We have vineyards like Solaris, which for 7 years we have not treated once. 0. 7 years, 0.
Oh, that's great.
So 0 sulfur, 0 copper, 0. However, scientific institutions tell us, look, it's better to give them maybe once or twice a treatment, just not to exaggerate. It's like if you have a wooden piece and you bend it, you can bend a certain amount, but if you just bend it too much, it will break.
It will
right?
break.
So they say it's better you give it a little support in the most precious, the most difficult time for the plant itself, which is around the blooming period, which is actually now. And then you give it help for, let's say, 1 or 2 treatments, and then that's it.
Okay.
Of course, there can be really rainy years or years which are really intensive fungus attacks. Then you may give it a 3rd one or so on. But like we are below, in average for all our wines, we are way below 20%. Of what we have a reduction more than 80%. Most of them, I was really actually surprised. Most people are quite open. Like they say, okay, I'll try. Yeah.
Okay.
And what I see, however, in the last, I'd say, now 2.5 years, there are a lot more people who come to the winery or who call or write an email and say, I'm looking for Piwi. I've seen you got Piwi grapes. And they really ask about Piwi.
Okay.
Of course, it's not 50% of the customers. Yeah.
I see.
But it's 5 years ago, 4 years ago, you would hardly find one person asking specifically for Piwi. And we see a lot of other colleagues, other wine growers, they come all journalists, wine journalists. They write about Piwis. There are about 5 competitions in Germany with a specific characteristic only for Piwi grapes.
Okay.
There are even awards exclusively for Piwis.
Piwis.
Yeah, and that did not exist 5 years ago. Yeah.
No.
I see 2 options. Or options, there are many, right? But my impression is that 2 options are really helpful. One option is to say, look, I've got something really new. It has a great taste, and you talk about the taste itself and give them an idea what, for instance, Calades Blanc is tasting like, or Muscaris, this great exotic aroma, and so on. And then you just pull them, and afterwards you tell them, oh, by the way, it's a Piwi grape, and so on and so on. It is sometimes customers, their customers, quite often they ask, well, what is it similar to? Is it similar to a Pinot Grigio, to a Riesling, to a Chardonnay, and so on? These are the 2 options. Sometimes it can be helpful to give them help to say Sauvignon Gris has aromatic similar to a Sauvignon Blanc, but not as loud. It's more in a lychee direction, for instance. And the palate is more like a rich, nice Pinot Grigio. The most important aspect is to explain people the quality and the taste.
Okay.
You can have a really nice product with a high moral or environmental standard, but let's say it's a shirt. If I don't like the color of the shirt, I will never wear it. So if you don't like the wine, you maybe buy 1 bottle because the lady was so nice or so on. Yeah, but you will never buy it. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and of course, then we open a range. We open a range, generally talking, opening a range to the customer. Say inside the PV group, we got different ones, and of course, if today you like a Riesling, then go for it. And maybe tomorrow you like to not drink a Riesling or another Sauvignon Blanc, then you And to answer fast and short, yes, I'm convinced they can.
I am.
And just like in classical grapes, if you take a Müller-Thurgau, you probably will not go and search for the different terroir as much as you do in a Chardonnay or in a Riesling.
No.
Because after the years, wine growers and we have learned that maybe a Riesling can show the terroir better than another grape like Müller-Thurgau, just to take an example. Yeah. And that's the same, in my opinion, with the Piwi grapes. I think that Sauvignon Gris can show more where it comes from, and has or is influenced a lot by the soil. Maybe there are other Piwi grapes which are not as much influenced. For example, the Sauvignon Gris Fumé, which is our premium line from the Sauvignon Gris. It's a different vineyard. It's even more limestone. It's a more heavy. There is more clay. The yield is slower. The berries are smaller, and you have this full and rich juice. And later on, then it's fermented in barrels. And then you have this difference also just in this juice already. You can taste the difference. Most colleagues, most wine growers, when they start now with PV, they're happy to have one vineyard, and it's very likely they will have this one vineyard and start to learn about the grape, and not start the first step to have different terroir and so on. At the beginning, you have not different terroir styles in one winery, but you have one Sauvignon Gris, and that's it. When we started, our aim was to have a range of 4 grapes, and that was it. Yeah, we had one vineyard of each grape, and that was it.
Yeah.
Only for one up. We had already 2 from the beginning. And also there we see the same slope, but one is higher, one is lower. Berries are smaller, and they are more crunchy. They are more tasty, and every year. You can do what you want. The higher one is better. And now we have the premium line. We got Monarch separated. The higher one is in our reserve, and from the lower part, which is nice, but not as concentrated, not as deep in the taste, is the regular one. And the same with Sauvignon Gris. Yeah, now we have the premium line, and our best wines are exclusively Piwi. I cannot know of course, for 100% sure, but my estimation is there are several reasons. One reason, traditionally in Germany and as well as in Rheinhessen, we have a higher percentage of white grapes than red grapes, just historically talking and traditionally. Second, we see in the last years, not only in Germany, but in all over Europe, the tendency that customers their change from red towards white. Of course, not 100%, luckily, but there is a tendency. And third, our climate is more adapted to white grapes, to my opinion. Like in a general comparison, we are not Sicily or southern France or so. The last reason is, I think in white PV selection, they are really grapes which have a really great chances, great potential from the taste, from the potential as a quality level, so you can have different quality levels, as well as the natural consistency. In the red grapes, there are also a wide range of options, but in the whites, you can find more grapes which have many positive aspects combined together. In the reds, there's sometimes one needs a long aging time, or another one has not such a high resistancy, or there is more, and especially there's more interest in white grapes, I think. It starts that you can get it in, especially when it's a higher level, higher quality supermarket, where it's an owner of this specific store. So not a chain, like he has the brand of the chain, but it's his own store. So he can choose and decide on the wine selection, or the lady, whoever it might be, the owner itself. Then, of course, more and more wine growers are planting peewees. And about, I think, in 2000, I think it was 22, if I'm not wrong, there was a group founded because just about 2 villages next to our village here, the young wine grower, she came to get our Sauvignon, for instance, to understand how it is, and then she planted it too, and she started a movement, let's say, to say, okay, we have to get together as peewee growers to talk about peewee and get customers and people involved into the subject, and journalists and whoever, because and we joined them in the first year because we started earlier, of course, but we see the same issue. If you're one guy doing it, it's hardly journalist listens to you. But if you're 50, it's a different power.
Sure.
And this book, it's called Zukunftswein. In Germany, there's a lot more marketing activity compared to 5 years ago. But it's still, I understand if you go to a normal German citizen and you ask him, do you know about peewee? Maybe yes, maybe no. So, but to give you an idea, because your husband likes statistics, in Germany, all over Germany, and it's pretty much the same in Rheinhessen, we have about 3.84% of the surface is planted with peewee. Out of these 4%, it's about, I don't remember exactly, but between 1.5% and 2% is the single variety Regent. Maybe you've heard of. Regent is also a peewee, one of the earlier ones, and it has not such a high resistancy. And that's why people take it out. So the amount of peewee grape is not as much growing because others take out the Regent and plant a new white one, for instance. And in our winery, just to give you an orientation, we have more than 40% of our vineyards are planted with peewee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many peewee varieties do you have?
Right now, 6.
6. Okay.
Yeah. Because my wife, Alina, she was how to say it in a funny way. She was formed, let's say, by her dad and later on, and her brother is continuing the same way. Julian, he's going the same way. Julian is even more on it. Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. That's it, right?
Right.
Whereas my father-in-law, he would still have Muscatella and Müller-Thurgau and some other varieties. And he was concentrating. So Alina also told me, look, it's no good to have a whole bunch of grapes just to have a whole bunch of grapes. Let's focus on the ones where we are really convinced. So she preferred not to grow much in different varieties rather than to really understand which one we think is to our climate, to our terroir, the most adapted. So now we have 6. And of course, I can imagine that in future, there will be some other ones, but it's not our aim to have many. I think so we can understand better Sauvignon or Monarch because we go more into deep understanding of each grape, and because we still have Riesling and Pinot Grigio and Grauburgunder and so on. They are reducing. We are reducing our assortment in bottles from classical ones in favor to PV ones.
Which PV varieties have the most potential?
Yeah, that's the first question when Alina and I would talk about what could be, I think, how do we continue evolving, which grape has which potential. And of course we cannot know unless somebody tries. I cannot know if Muscatus can be a Beerenauslese unless somebody tries. And and that's why actually we also started to say we want to have a premium line of these peewees and to answer your question, we did some years with Sauvignon Gris and we were not convinced as much. And then we thought, maybe it's not the grape for wood. And then we changed some winemaking process and so on. Also the inspiration from Julian, indeed, we took a different wine, tonnellerie, a different producer from oak barrels, and a different approach. And so we think, and that's why we had the Sauvignon Gris Fumé, and we think that Sauvignon Gris really has this high octane potential. It has, you can have it, that's what I really like about Sauvignon Gris, you can have it in a different range of stylistic, sensorical stylistic. You can have it in Burgundy style, like in a Pinot Blanc, Pinot Grigio stylistic. You can have it more in a fruity style. And then you can have in this Burgundy oak producing Fumé style, for example. Solaris, for instance, we don't see as such a range. I think that Muscaris gives the idea for the aromatic sweet wine characteristic. We have, for example, for Muscaris, we have 3 different kinds. The regular wine, then we got the Beerenauslese, and then we got even the sparkling, the Frizzante style, yeah? So let us talk in 20 years, and then not only one wine, one spot, and you have experience not for 1 year or 10 years. If you got experience about the roots are deeper, you got old vines. In Monarch, for example, the first years of Monarch, the red grape, after like first it was not at all the same result as we have it now. Now, for example, we know a lot more how the grape reacts when you leave it long time ripening in the vineyard. So now we can risk a lot more, and we see now, we understand better this difference in terroir influence, because we couldn't know it at the first years. So now we got, that's why we decided, we always had a premium wine from another grape, but we had them elaborated in oak barrels separately, and we used to make a blend. But we figured after some years, the Monarch one was always the better one. So then we said, of course, we will separate Monarch in itself, the lower vineyard and the higher one. And so, of course, you know, we are not the first ones. It's important for me to say, because there are also other people who started long earlier. What I think is a difference is that we started very early to focus on peewee grapes. Because I know some colleagues in another village just close to here, he had some peewee grapes, but it was just one vineyard and just, you know, a grape you have. And yeah, it would just be part of the winery and that's it. Yeah, you wouldn't focus on it, which is absolutely fine. But when we started, we had quite a big, my dad always said, if we go that path, let's plant right on from the beginning a bigger surface, so we can do experiment, because then you can separate the vineyard and say, one I harvest early, one part I harvest later, or one part I do a specific work on the leaves and another one not. So you can find out what is the impact, what's the difference. If you only have 3 lines, you can hardly separate it in small little pieces. Yeah. And I think that's maybe the difference, that we started really early to focus on them and to try to understand the grape variety characteristic. Yeah. Like if you think about the Western Europe, in France, they do plant a lot of peewee now, a lot. They use the French system, where very often you do not mention the grape variety of the label, but you mention the area where it comes from.
Yes.
So now they have opened up even in Champagne, which is like a sacrilege. Like it's holy to Champagne to have 3 grapes, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay. That was it.
Yeah. Right.
Was holy, that was it. Yeah, my words. Now they opened it up to have a peewee grape inserted in the Champagne area. And they use this one, they're allowed to plant this one peewee grape.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Maybe, let's say, I wish them more courage to mention the grape on the label and not to be afraid of innovation, so to say.
Right.
I understand it's a different tradition, it's a different history. That's fine, yeah. When you get the feeling, when you get attached to it, then
Okay.
Also, in Portugal, they have areas where it's allowed to plant now Sauvignon Gris. In southern France, I have tasted here in Germany. I've seen Sauvignon Gris from southern France, for instance. Because I mean, they have the same situation as in Germany, as in Austria, as in Italy. We have this fungus issue. It's here. You can there.
Right.
So if you have a plant which has this natural consistency, like nobody likes spraying. Nobody. It's just you need to. If you don't, you have grapes, and nobody will buy this wine. Yeah. There's a lot of pushing now. Actually, French institutions for many years, they left the research about peewees about 15, 20, now it must be 20 years, maybe even more. The institutions came to buy plant material from German and institutions to develop their new research programs. They got now quite a few grapes too. Italy is working on it. I would say there are issues individual to each grape. For example, Muscadet is a grape variety which has a lot of buds coming out from the trunk, like new shoots, new branches. We have the Guyot system, they're coming out the different branches coming up. And in Muscadet, on one place where usually comes out one branch, it's very often 2, even 3 branches at one place. So you got too many leaves, too many branches. So we go and we go there by hand and take off branches. The trunk is coming up, and where the Guyot starts, here at this place, you have a lot, it comes out 20, 15 branches, so you have to take them all off and leave just 6 or so. And Muscadet is a grape which likes to grow like this and not like this. So my grandma, she used to say, there's a classical grape which is doing the same. My grandma used to say, just like a bush, a nice Riesling growing up, and it's almost standing by itself. Whereas Sauvignon Gris is nice standing by itself, for instance. But in some grapes, they have a little, too early frost is some of them have an issue. Yeah, this is more individual. Yeah, some of them have a aspect on like side small illnesses. For example, there can be some which are a little bit more delicate on it. But no, the main issue is actually the extra work you have. For Monarch, for example, we have to go and reduce the yield. Important to really get a nice
concentration.
Yeah, but that's the same thing in a classical grape. You can have one with a high yield potential. Out of a view of analogy, of course, you can do it like physically. It's possible. Question is on a sensorical aspect, like how does it taste, which grape, and what potential of aromatic style. To my personal opinion, which is, I think Muscadet has a great potential when you have little residual sugar, because you can leave it long ripening. From the experience so far, when Muscadet gets long time to ripen in the vineyard, and the berry really change into yellow color, you taste the berry. They are always aromatic, but you get a point they're more aromatic and more into exotic stylistic. But this comes at a later moment. And at this moment, we already have a higher amount of sugar, a natural amount of sugar in the grape. In order to have this exotic aromatic, you need to leave it long in the vineyard, and therefore a little residual sugar is helpful. Sauvignon Gris, for example, I never tried to make it as a sweet wine. Maybe like I haven't tasted a Sauvignon Blanc in a sweet stylistic. I think it's not sweeting. It doesn't fit as much this grape and this characteristic of aromatic which you find in the dry wines and in the grape and in the berry and the juice. That's why we decided not to go on that, but rather use Muscatis. Where Solaris, we tried both already. The dry one, sweet one. There we experimented because we can see both options. In our assortment and range of bottled wine, we have one, which is a dry version. Yeah, I'm really amazed that people so far away from the other side of the world are so much interested and willing in trying to taste wines from a small wine country, so to say. And wow, I'm amazed and thankful, and I wish you this enjoyment of tasting, like from the classical ones. Enjoy what you can find there, and now open and enjoy what you can find in the new Peewee grapes. And I would ask you for one thing, to give them a try in maybe different years or in different circumstances. Because just in a regular grape variety too, everyone has to start and get a feeling for it. And maybe in the first year when you start cooking at home, it's not the same result as after you did 5 years of cooking. Then you experience. It's both parts, Peewee and classical grapes. We can go together. It's just open up the options and then invite you for a great taste of Sauvignon Gris or Calades Blanc, and enjoy the discovery.